I didn't even see the glass tilt. All I felt was the cold splash. Red wine hit my chest, spreading fast across my black dress, like blood blooming on fabric. A soft gasp moved through the room. Then silence. "Oh, look at that," Caitlin said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "At least now you don't look so lifeless." She smiled, not apologizing, not even pretending to care, just standing there in her designer dress, watching the stain grow. That dress was the only decent thing I owned, and now it was ruined. Around us, people stopped talking. Forks paused midair. Eyes shifted, but no one said a word. They never did. "Don't just stand there." Brenda's sharp voice cut through the silence from behind me. "If you're going to look like a servant, you might as well act like one." Before I could react, she pushed a heavy silver tray into my hands. "Go on," she snapped. "Serve the guests. They're thirsty." The tray nearly slipped from my fingers, but I caught it. Of course I did. I always did. I turned and walked toward the kitchen without saying a word. Behind me, the chatter slowly came back to life, like nothing had happened. Like I didn't exist. The kitchen door swung shut behind me. Silence. Cold, clean, controlled silence. The air smelled like lemon polish and steel. It always did. This room had been my world for 5 years. I placed the tray down carefully, my hands steady, even though my chest felt like it was burning. I grabbed a bottle of soda water and pressed it against the stain. Rubbed. Hard. Again. Nothing. The red mark stayed, stubborn, spreading slightly at the edges. I stopped. Slowly. I looked up. My reflection stared back at me from the stainless steel fridge. A girl in a stained black dress. Hair tied back too tight. Eyes tired but quiet. I'm 25 years old. I have a degree in business management. I earned it at night, studying in silence, while during the day, I changed oxygen tanks, cleaned floors, and took care of a man everyone else had already forgotten. My grandfather, Arthur Sterling. To me, he was everything. To them, he was just a bank account with a heartbeat. In that other room, I wasn't his granddaughter. I was just the help, the leftover, the inconvenience. For years, I asked myself the same question. Why? Why did Brenda hate me so much? Why did Caitlin, who had everything, still feel the need to humiliate me? Was I really that worthless? Was I unlovable? My hand slowly dropped from the stain, and for the first time, I stopped asking. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. It was never about me. Never. They weren't better than me. They were afraid. Afraid of something they could never become. I let out a slow breath. Grandpa used to say, people reveal themselves when power is involved. And now, power was about to change hands. They just didn't know it yet. I dried my hands on a towel slowly, carefully. 10 minutes. That's how long until the will was read. 10 minutes, until everything shifted. I didn't expect money. I didn't expect property. Grandpa and we had already said everything that mattered before he passed. But there was one thing I knew for sure. Arthur Sterling never, ever, acted without a plan. I picked up the tray again, adjusted my posture, and walked back out. The library doors were already closed. Heavy oak, sealed tight, like whatever was about to happen inside wasn't meant for the outside world. I pushed them open and stepped in. The air inside felt different. Thicker, heavier, like greed had a scent, and it lived here. At the head of the table sat Timothy, the young lawyer. Nervous, sweating slightly, like he knew he didn't belong in a room like this. Brenda sat beside him, perfectly composed. Dry eyes, straight posture, the picture of a grieving widow, if you didn't look too closely. Caitlin didn't even bother pretending. She was on her phone scrolling, bored. I stayed near the door, holding the tray, invisible, as usual. "We are gathered here today," Timothy began, his voice thin, slightly shaky. The words blurred together at first. Legal language, formal tone, expected structure. Then came the numbers. To Caitlin Sterling, $5 million. Cash. Available immediately. She didn't even look up properly. "Cool," she muttered, then went back to her phone. 5 million. Reduced to a casual reaction. To Brenda Sterling, the penthouse in Manhattan, and lifetime residence rights to this estate. She smiled. Slow. Satisfied. Like a predator who just secured its territory. Then, Timothy hesitated. His eyes lifted. And landed on me. The room shifted. Just slightly. But enough. To Giselle. Silence. Complete silence. I felt every eye in the room turn toward me. Brenda leaned back in her chair, a small smirk forming. Go on, she said softly. Let's hear what he left, the help. Timothy cleared his throat, but his hands were shaking. Instead of reading from the main document, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out something small. An envelope. Old. Slightly yellow, like it had been sitting somewhere for a long time. No official seal. No stamp. Just tape across the top. He placed it on the table and gently slid it toward me. This was left specifically for you. That was it. No dramatic number. No property. Just an envelope. For a second, I didn't move. I just stared at it. This was what my grandfather had left me. Before I could even reach for it, Brenda snatched it off the table. Quick. Sharp. Possessive. Let me see that, she said. She held it up toward the light, squinting as if something valuable might magically appear through the paper. Then, she laughed. Loud. Harsh. Ugly. Oh, this is rich, she said, shaking her head. It's probably unpaid medical bills. A few people in the room chuckled nervously. Or maybe, she continued, her lips curling, a list of chores he forgot to assign you. She tossed the envelope back onto the table, like it was worthless. Like I was. He knew your place, she added coldly. That's why he didn't leave you anything real. Her eyes locked onto mine. You wouldn't even know what to do with money. The words hit. Not because they were loud, but because a small, quiet part of me had always feared they were true. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I looked down at the envelope again. Was this it? Was this how he saw me? Not as his granddaughter, but as the girl who cleaned, who carried, who stayed invisible. Brenda leaned back, picking up her champagne again. Don't look so heartbroken, she said casually. We'll let you stay here for a few weeks, until you figure out where to go. A pause. Then she added, almost kindly, maybe a shelter. Something inside my chest tightened so hard, it felt like it might collapse. Not because of money. I didn't care about money. I would have lived with nothing, if I had known I mattered to him. But this silence, this emptiness, it felt like being erased. Give me that, Brenda said suddenly, reaching forward again. Her fingers stretched toward the envelope. Trash belongs in the trash. That's when something changed. Not slowly. Not gently. Instantly. My hand moved before I even thought about it. I grabbed the envelope. Pulled it back. Hard. The chair behind me scraped loudly against the floor as I stood up. Don't. My voice came out low and steady, but firm. Stronger than it had ever sounded before. Brenda froze. Her hand still hanging in the air. Excuse me, she said slowly. I didn't repeat myself. I didn't need to. I'm leaving, I said. Simple. Clear. Final. And without waiting for permission, I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard Caitlin laugh. She's probably going to cry in the pantry, she said. She wasn't wrong about the place. But she was wrong about the tears. I didn't go to my room. I went to the butler's pantry. A narrow, quiet space between the kitchen and dining hall. No windows. No noise. Just shelves, silverware, and silence. The only place in that entire house that ever felt safe. I stepped inside. Closed the door. Locked it. My hands were shaking now. Not from fear. From something else. Something building. I took a breath and carefully opened the envelope. The paper inside slid out easily. Too easily. There was no stack of documents. No letter. Just one small card. White. Plain. I picked it up. And looked down. 10 digits. A phone number. Nothing else. For a second, I just blinked. Confused. Then I noticed the line written underneath. The handwriting was rough. Pressed hard into the paper. I would recognize it anywhere. Grandpa's. Call when the wolves show their teeth. My breath caught. The words echoed in my mind, over and over again. He knew. He knew exactly what was going to happen. The humiliation. The insults. The way they would try to break me. This wasn't nothing. This was timing. This was a trigger. This was a weapon. My fingers tightened around the card. He hadn't left me behind. He had prepared me. I quickly pulled my phone out of my pocket. The screen was cracked. Of course it was. Caitlin had knocked it off the table last week, and never even looked back. But it still worked. And that was enough. I stared at the number for 1 second more. Then I dialed. The phone rang once. Just once. Then, it connected. Sterling Legal. The voice on the other end was deep. Controlled. Powerful. Not nervous like Timothy. Not unsure. This was someone who didn't ask for authority. He carried it. My grip on the phone tightened. Hello, I said quietly. This is Giselle. There was a pause. Not empty. Heavy. Intentional. I know who this is. The voice changed slightly. Sharper. Focused. Respectful. I've been waiting for your call. My heart skipped. Waiting? For me. I've been waiting for your call. The words didn't just land. They echoed. Heavy. Certain. Like everything had already been decided, long before this moment. My grip on the phone tightened. Who is this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. There was a brief pause. Then, Chief Legal Counsel for the Sterling Group. My heart skipped. No, that couldn't be. Mr. Sterling? I said, almost breathless. The one and only. His tone was calm, controlled, but underneath it, there was something else. Respect. A kind of respect I had never heard directed at me before. I have security on standby, he continued. And the transfer documents are ready. I frowned slightly, confused. Transfer documents? Another pause. Then the words that changed everything. Madam Chairwoman, are you ready to proceed? The world stopped. Madam. Chairwoman? I think you have the wrong person, I said quickly. No, he replied, firm. I don't. Silence filled the space between us. Then he spoke again, slower this time. Clear. Precise. 6 months ago, Arthur Sterling transferred controlling shares of the company and full ownership of all major assets into a blind trust. My breath caught. What does that have to do with me? You are the trust. My fingers went numb. You are the sole beneficiary and the acting authority. A pause. Then, you own the company. My heart started pounding. You own the estate. Another beat. And Giselle. His voice softened, just slightly. You own the house you're standing in. I turned slowly, staring at the pantry door. On the other side, they were celebrating, laughing, drinking. In my house. Are you ready? He asked. To take your seat at the head of the table? For a moment, I couldn't speak. All the years, all the silence, all the humiliation. It flashed through my mind, like pieces of a life I was about to leave behind. I wiped the last tear from my cheek. And this time, it wasn't from pain. Yes, I said. My voice steady. Clear. I'm ready. I opened the pantry door. Stepped into the hallway. And for a brief second, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Same uniform. Same stain. Same tired eyes. But something had changed. Something deep. Unshakable. The girl who stayed quiet was gone. I walked back into the library. No hesitation. No fear. Brenda was still talking on the phone. Laughing. Bragging. Caitlin was scrolling. Probably shopping already. Neither of them noticed me at first. Then, Brenda extended her empty glass toward me without even looking. Finally, she said impatiently. Fill it up. I didn't move. Didn't reach for the glass. Didn't even blink. I said no. The room went still. Brenda slowly turned her head. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me. I said no. My voice was calm. Even. Loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm done serving you. For a second, she just stared at me. Then her face twisted. Red. Furious. You ungrateful little. Get out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Get out of my house. She laughed. Sharp. Disbelieving. Your house, she snapped. Have you lost your mind? Right on cue. The doors opened. Hard. For men in dark suits stepped inside. Behind them, Mr. Sterling. The real one. The room shifted instantly. Power had entered. And everyone felt it. He walked straight toward me. Stopped. And slightly lowered his head. Madam Chairwoman, he said respectfully. Everything is ready. Caitlin let out a nervous laugh. Okay, what is this? She said. She's the maid. Mr. Sterling didn't even look at her. He opened his portfolio and placed a document on the table. Clean. Official. Stamped. This, he said, is the deed of transfer. Brenda grabbed it quickly. Her eyes scanned the page. Once. Twice. Then again. Color drained from her face. This isn't possible, she stammered. It is, he replied calmly. You were provided with a residence and financial support. He glanced at her. Think of it as a severance package. I stepped forward. Slowly. He made sure you'd be comfortable, I said. But he didn't trust you with his legacy. Brenda slammed her hand on the table. I have rights, she shouted. And I have ownership. I picked up the champagne bottle she had been drinking from. Looked at it for a second. Then, I poured it directly onto the silk carpet. The same carpet she had warned me about. The liquid spread fast. Soaking in. Ruining it. just like she said it would. "You are guests here," I said quietly. "And your time is over." For a moment, she looked like she might explode. Then suddenly, she smiled. "Slow. Dangerous. You think you've won," she said. She grabbed the will. Flipped it open. "Read this," she snapped, pointing to a section. Her voice rose with confidence. "I have lifetime residence rights. I can stay here until I die." The room went quiet. Mr. Sterling nodded once. "She is correct." For a split second, it felt like the ground shifted. But then, he turned the page. "And those rights," he added calmly, "are conditional." Brenda's smile faltered. "Any deliberate damage to estate property voids the agreement." Silence. Heavy. Final. Then, his eyes moved to the floor. To the carpet. To the spreading stain. Realization hit her. Too late. Security stepped forward. "No, wait," she started. But it was over. Completely. As they dragged her out screaming, Caitlin ran. Literally ran. The doors slammed shut behind them. And just like that, silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Clean. Free. Later, when everything was done, I walked back into the room. The broken pieces of their control, scattered everywhere. And for the first time, I could breathe. I wasn't invisible anymore. I never had been.